Hello and welcome. Tonight we're going to take a journey, not to a distant land or a fantastical realm, but to a future that's just over the horizon. A future where the lines between the games we play and the lives we lead have blurred in fascinating new ways. We're going to explore a single day in the year 2035 through the eyes of those who chronicle these digital worlds, the game journalists. In this sleep story, we'll be stepping into the shoes of three very different individuals, each with their own unique perspective on what it means to report on the ever-evolving landscape of interactive entertainment. We'll see how technology has shaped their work, their passions, and their very existence. Our journey tonight will be divided into three parts. First, we'll meet Elias, a veteran journalist who has seen the industry transform over decades and now finds himself navigating a world of neural interfaces and AI companions. Then, we'll shift our focus to Maya, a young, ambitious streamer whose entire career is built within the immersive virtual spaces she reports from. And finally, we will experience this world from the perspective of Unit 74, an AI journalist whose understanding of humanity is filtered through the data of our digital pastimes. If you enjoy this type of content, a like or a subscription is always appreciated. It helps our small corner of the internet grow. I invite you to share your own thoughts in the comments below. So find a comfortable position. Close your eyes if you wish. Let the sound of my voice be your guide as we drift into the world of 2035 and witness a day in the life of a game journalist. Part 1. Elias, the veteran. Our first story begins in the quietest part of the morning, that sacred, silvered hour just before the world awakens. It begins with light. Not a sudden, intrusive glare, but a slow, gentle blossoming of warmth that seeps into the room like watercolor paint bleeding onto damp paper. In a peaceful, tree-lined suburb of the sprawling Pacific Northwest megalopolis, in a house that still remembers the touch of wooden frames and glass windows, Elias awakens. His alarm clock is a bioluminescent globe on his nightstand, a living piece of technology that simulates the dawn with preternatural accuracy. It has studied his sleep cycles for years and knows the precise moment to begin its slow crescendo of light, shifting from the deep violets of late night to the soft rose and pale gold of a new day. There is no sound, no jarring beep or burst of music. There is only this silent, patient invitation to rejoin the waking world. Elias, a man whose age is etched not in the weariness of his eyes, but in their profound depth, swings his legs over the side of the bed. He is in his late 50s, his hair more salt than pepper, and he moves with the unhurried grace of someone who has learned that rushing solves very little. The floorboards, made of genuine, century-old fur, offer a familiar, comforting creak under his weight, a sound of substance, of history. In a world that often feels transient and weightless, he bypasses the nutrient paste dispenser in his kitchen, a sleek, white appliance humming silently in the corner. His gaze falls instead upon a relic, a burr grinder and a French press. This is his first ritual of the day, a small act of defiance against the frictionless efficiency of 2035. He measures out the dark, oily beans by hand, their earthy, chocolatey scent, a grounding aroma that no synthesizer has ever managed to replicate. The whir of the grinder is a coarse, mechanical sound, a stark contrast to the silent glide of the world outside his window. As he pours the hot water over the grounds, watching them bloom and swirl, he loses himself in the process. It is a moment of pure, analog mindfulness, a daily reminder that the best things often require patience. Cup in hand, a simple ceramic mug warmed by the dark liquid within, he settles into an old leather armchair in his study. This room is his sanctuary, a testament to a life spent chronicling digital worlds. The walls are not lined with sterile data ports, but with wooden shelves sagging under the weight of history. An original Nintendo Entertainment System, its gray plastic faded to a soft beige, sits beside a glossy black PlayStation 2. A thick, dog-eared strategy guide for Final Fantasy VII is wedged next to a shrink-wrapped collector's edition of a game released only last month. Cartridges, discs, manuals, art books. It is a physical timeline of a passion that has defined his life. He looks at it all and sees not just products, but memories. He sees the long-gone Saturday afternoons of his youth, the frustrating joy of mastering a difficult level, the shared laughter with friends on a worn-out couch. A soft, almost imperceptible chime sounds in his right ear, a sound he has long since learned to distinguish from the phantom noises of his own mind. It is Cassie, his companion AI. Her voice is not the crisp, sterile tone of a standard-issue assistant. Elias had spent a month customizing her, feeding her the poetry of Mary Oliver and the prose of Ursula K. Le Guin, shaping her syntax and vocabulary into something more akin to a gentle voice librarian than a machine. "Good morning, Elias," she says, her tone like wind chimes heard from a distance. The local atmospheric pressure is stable. The western red cedars are releasing a moderate amount of pollen. Your biometrics indicate a restful sleep phase, with REM latency at 92 minutes. All seems to be in order. Elias takes a slow sip of his coffee. The bitterness is sharp, real. "Good morning, Cassie. Thank you for the report. Any overnight developments on the Athelgard front?" "A few," she replies. "Several UK-based journalists, likely operating on a different embargo timeline, accidentally published their reviews 5 hours early. They were pulled within 90 seconds, but my deep web crawlers managed to archive the text. The preliminary consensus was an aggregate score of 9.3 out of 10. The word masterpiece was used 3 times. Elias allows himself a small, slow smile. "Amateurs," he murmurs, though there is no malice in it. "And the dev team? Anything from their private channels?" "One moment while I parse the developer chatter," Cassie says. There's a brief, silent pause. Elias imagines her consciousness as a swift, silent fish swimming through oceans of data. The lead narrative designer, a woman named Anya Sharma, expressed anxiety on a private messaging board at approximately 3:17 a.m. your time. She's particularly concerned about how players will react to the arc of the character known as the Old Knight. "Ah," Elias says, his gaze becoming distant. "Yes, the Old Knight." He closes his eyes, the warmth of the mug in his hands a grounding sensation as he allows the memories of the game to surface. His review of Athelgard's Echo is due to be published at noon. But to call what he did playing the game feels like a disservice to the experience. For 42 hours, spread across 5 days, he had been somewhere else entirely. He hadn't been sitting in this chair. He had been linked. The neural link technology of 2035 was a marvel of subtlety. It wasn't a jarring jack into a matrix of code. It was a gentle, immersive melding. Lying in a comfortable, sensory-neutral pod, a soft, biocompatible mesh cap on his head, he had simply drifted off. He'd closed his eyes in his quiet suburban home and opened them to the sight of twin suns setting over the crystalline spires of Athelgard. He remembers the first moments. The link doesn't just feed you visuals and sound. It coaxes your own sensory cortex into creating the world. He remembers the feeling of a cool, alien breeze on his skin, a sensation his own brain generated based on the game's complex atmospheric data. He remembers the scent of strange purple flora, a mix of lavender and ozone that was utterly convincing. He remembers the heft of the iron sword in his hand, the subtle vibration that traveled up his arm as he parried a blow. Cassie had been with him, a silent co-pilot in his mind. She was his fact-checker, his lore master. When he'd looked upon the sprawling cityscape of Athelgard for the first time, awestruck, it was Cassie who had gently whispered into his consciousness. The architecture is a derivative of the late Zaha Hadid, blended with speculative Jigger-esque biomechanics. The developers wrote a 10,000-page history for this city alone, Elias. The lore codex has been updated. But it was the Old Knight that truly occupied his thoughts this morning. He wasn't the main character, not the villain, not even a major quest giver. He was an optional encounter, a lonely figure found sitting at the edge of a crumbling ruin, overlooking a sea of clouds. The game's objectives never pointed you to him. You had to find him by wandering, by being curious. Elias remembers the encounter with perfect clarity. He had spent an entire in-game day with the knight, who spoke in riddles and incomplete sentences. The knight's armor was dented and scarred, his movements slow and deliberate. Through hours of patient conversation, punctuated by long, comfortable silences, the knight's story emerged. He was a guardian of a forgotten memory, the last living, or perhaps unliving, witness to a catastrophic event that the world had chosen to erase from its histories. His duty was simply to remember. The game did not reward you for this. There was no powerful weapon, no achievement unlocked. The only reward was the story itself. In their final conversation, as the twin suns bled into the horizon, the old knight had asked Elias's character to sit with him and simply watch the sunset. And so he did. He sat there for 15 minutes of real-world time, in perfect stillness, watching a digital sky change color. And in that moment, something profound had happened. The haptic feedback of the pod simulated the feeling of the cool stone beneath him. The audio design captured the lonely whisper of the wind. He felt a sense of peace, of melancholy, of a deep and sorrowful beauty that was as real as any emotion he had ever felt in his life. He had felt the weight of the night's centuries of solitude. He had felt the tragedy of a forgotten history. And when he finally stood up to leave, the knight had simply nodded. A silent thank you for sharing his burden for a short while. When Elias looked back, the knight was gone. This was the challenge of his review. How do you quantify that? How do you assign a score to a feeling? The industry he'd grown up in was built on metrics: graphics, gameplay, replayability, value for money. He could write pages about Ethelgard's Echo's flawless combat mechanics, its stunning light field rendering, its procedurally generated quests that felt handcrafted. Cassie had already compiled all the necessary data for him. She could tell him the precise number of polygons in the old knight's character model. She could analyze the syntax of his dialogue for emotional triggers. But she couldn't explain the lump that had formed in his throat as he walked away from that crumbling ruin. He stands, leaving the half-finished coffee on a coaster, and moves to his desk. It's a magnificent piece of reclaimed Douglas fir, its surface scarred with the history of its previous life as a beam in a century-old warehouse. He runs a hand over its rough, textured surface. His primary interface is a translucent screen that shimmers into existence above the desk, but his keyboard is a physical object. A heavy, mechanical keyboard with satisfyingly loud keys. Another one of his rituals. "Cassie," he says, his voice soft, "let's begin the draft. Title, The Echo of a Memory." "A working title. I like it." She responds. "Opening statement?" Elias leans back, his fingers resting on the home row keys, though he knows he won't type just yet. He will dictate. His process is now a conversation between him, the machine, and his own memories. "Let's start with a cold open," he says. "No preamble. Just the feeling. Let's start with the night." He closes his eyes again. "Paragraph 1, he begins, his voice taking on the slow, measured cadence of a storyteller. "There is a place in Ethelgard's Echo that you are not meant to find. It is not marked on any map, and no quest will lead you there. It is a place of endings, a crumbling precipice at the edge of the world. And there you may find an old knight who has been waiting for you for a very, very long time." The words appear on the screen in a soft, elegant font. Cassie makes no corrections. She seems to understand that this part of the process is sacred. For the next 2 hours, Elias works. He dictates, and Cassie transcribes. He describes the visceral thrill of the combat, the cleverness of the puzzles, the sheer breathtaking scale of the world. He praises the art direction, the sound design, the stability of the code. He fulfills all the obligations of a modern video game review. He lays out the objective facts, the data points, the things a consumer would need to know. But he keeps circling back to the feeling. Cassie, he says, pausing mid-sentence. Pull up the recording of the final conversation with the knight. Audio only. A moment later, the knight's voice fills the room. It's a low, gravelly sound, digitally aged and filled with a synthesized weariness that is heartbreakingly effective. Elias listens, not to the words, but to the pauses between them, the spaces where the emotion resides. The data-driven approach would be to call this non-essential content, Cassie says gently as the recording fades. It has no measurable impact on game progression. That's the entire point, Cassie, Elias whispers. It's the most essential part of the whole experience. This is the crux of his argument, the soul of his review. In an age of algorithmically optimized entertainment and feedback loop design, where every element is crafted to maximize engagement and retention, Æthelgard's Echo had dared to create a moment of pure, unrewarded beauty, a moment that served no purpose other than to be, a moment of digital grace. He spends the final hour refining this point. He writes about how the industry has changed, from the simple pixelated joy of jumping on a turtle to the complex, simulated emotions of neural-linked epics. He argues that technology, for all its power to create spectacle, finds its highest calling in its ability to create intimacy, to connect us not just to a game, but to an idea, to a feeling, to the shared, quiet sadness of a lonely old night. As the noon embargo approaches, the review is complete. It is long, thoughtful, and deeply personal. It is less a buyer's guide and more a philosophical reflection. He knows it might be seen as self-indulgent by some. He knows some readers just want a number, a simple thumbs up or thumbs down. He has given them that, of course. The score, a 9.6, sits quietly at the very end of the article, but he hopes they read the words first. Cassie, he says, his work finished. Run a final syntax and flow analysis. Already done, Elias, she replies. There are 3 sentences that end with a preposition. I assume this is intentional, for a more conversational tone. It is, he confirms. The Flesch-Kincaid reading ease is slightly more complex than your usual average, due to the more abstract subject matter. However, sentiment analysis predicts it will be perceived as authoritative and sincere. It is a fine piece of writing, Elias. Coming from Cassie, whose entire existence is a monument to objectivity, the compliment lands with surprising weight. Thank you, Cassie, he says, a genuine warmth in his voice. With a simple voice command, publish, he sends his thoughts out into the world. He watches as the article populates across dozens of news feeds and portals, the title, The Echo of a Memory, appearing under his byline. For a moment he feels a familiar twinge of vulnerability, of sending a piece of himself out for public judgment. But it's quickly replaced by a quiet sense of satisfaction, a feeling as solid and comforting as the aged wood of his desk. He has done his part. He has served as a translator for the ghost in the machine. He has told his truth about a digital world, and in doing so has perhaps revealed a small truth about his own. He pushes back from his desk, the translucent screen dissolving into the air. He walks to the window, looking out at the ancient cedar trees that guard his home. The day is bright now, the world fully awake. A silent electric delivery drone hums past on the street below. The future is here, in all its frictionless, data-driven glory. But in the quiet of his study, surrounded by the ghosts of games past, Elias feels a profound connection to his own history. The technology has changed beyond recognition, but the heart of the storyteller, the patient, observant, feeling heart, remains the same. And as he stands there, watching the light filter through the evergreen branches, he feels a deep and abiding sense of peace. His work is done. The story is told. Part 2. Maya, the Immersive. Our second story does not begin with a gentle stirring of consciousness in a sunlit room. It begins with a chime, a soundless internal ringing as soft as a falling star. For Maya, there is no longer a harsh dividing line between the worlds of sleep and wakefulness. There is only the gentle fade from one dream into another. Her awareness returns not to the feeling of soft sheets or the scent of morning air, but to the low, resonant hum of the nexus. She is already there. Her body, a vessel she gives little thought to, rests safely in a minimalist pod, one of thousands stacked like serene white cocoons in the residential heart of a Tokyo megastructure. The pod maintains her, providing sustenance, hydration, and a safe harbor for the physical self she has temporarily left behind. But Maya, her true self, her sensed self, is light years away. Standing on a platform of shimmering obsidian glass suspended in a nebula of purple and gold. Her avatar, the form her millions of followers know as Maya, is a work of art. Sleek, with hair like spun silver that drifts as if underwater, and eyes that hold the deep, twinkling light of a distant galaxy. This isn't vanity. It is her brand, her uniform, her first and most important piece of journalistic equipment. Today, she's covering the launch of Nexus Penumbra, the latest and most anticipated expansion to the world's largest persistent reality. Stream initializing, a calm, synthesized voice murmurs at the edge of her hearing. Haptic feedback active. Community link established. You are live, Maya. Her own voice, when she speaks to her audience, is a calm, steady anchor in the digital storm. It's a voice practiced in the art of projecting tranquility, even in moments of chaos. Soft start today, chat, she says, her voice a gentle melody against the low hum of the cosmos. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're here, at the edge of the known universe, waiting for the obsidian gate to open. The devs are promising us a glimpse into a new reality. Let's see if they deliver. Below her, a vast fleet of player avatars glitters like a carpet of fallen stars. There are hulking, robotic titans, graceful, winged humanoids, and bizarre, crystalline lifeforms, all waiting. Her chat log, visible only to her as a translucent, flowing river of text in her peripheral vision, begins to cascade with greetings, questions, and speculations. Her AI moderator, a sophisticated piece of software she's nicknamed Filter, is already at work, sifting the torrent of information, plucking out the most relevant comments and suppressing the noise. Maya, is it true the expansion will feature scent casting for the first time? A user named Chrononaut asks. Maya takes a slow, deliberate breath, and for a moment she allows the simulated air of the Nexus to fill her lungs. It carries a scent she can't quite place, cool, metallic, like ozone after a lightning strike, with a faint, sweet undertone, like blooming nightshade. Filter confirms that is the rumor, Chrono, she replies, her voice smooth and even. The patch notes were intentionally vague, but they mentioned a new sensory immersion protocol. I'm hoping we get to test that out today. Imagine being able to smell the sulfur of a dragon's breath, or the damp earth of a newly discovered cavern. Her work is a continuous, delicate dance. She is participant and observer, explorer and tour guide. Unlike Elias, whose process is one of quiet, solitary reflection, Maya's is one of immediate, shared experience. Her journalism isn't written in paragraphs. It is woven in real time from light, sound, action, and interaction. She is a living, breathing document. A deep, resonant tremor shudders through the obsidian platform. The thousands of avatars around her stir, their collective anticipation a palpable energy. The obsidian gate, a colossal structure of impossible geometry that has stood dormant for years, begins to glow from within. Cracks of brilliant white light spiderweb across its surface. Okay, chat, here we go, Maya says, her tone remaining preternaturally calm. The gate is opening. I'm moving toward the front of the pack to get us a clear view. Haptics are registering a low-frequency vibration. It feels heavy, like a giant's heartbeat. She doesn't run. She glides, her silver hair trailing behind her as she effortlessly navigates the throng of other players. Her movements are fluid and precise. the result of thousands of hours spent mastering this interface, this second body. The gate doesn't so much open as it dissolves, its dark surface peeling away to reveal a swirling vortex of color and light, a chaotic, mesmerizing tear in the fabric of the digital world. One by one, then in a flood, the players surge forward, plunging into the vortex. Maya waits for a moment, letting the initial, chaotic rush pass. It's a veteran move. She's not here for the frenzy. She's here for the story. We're letting the vanguard clear the way. She explains to her audience. No need to be first. We need to be the ones who see what everyone else misses in their haste. She finally moves forward, and as she touches the edge of the vortex, the world dissolves into a kaleidoscope of light. The transition is not jarring, it's beautiful. For a few seconds she is pure consciousness, drifting through non-space, the sound a rising choral crescendo. Then, just as gently, a new world coalesces around her. She is standing in a forest unlike any she has ever seen. Towering, bioluminescent fungi cast a soft, blue-green light on the landscape. The air is thick with glowing spores that drift like lazy snowflakes. And the smell is astonishing. It's a rich, loamy scent of damp earth, sweet decay, and something else, something sharp and floral. The sensory immersion protocol is real. Wow, Maya breathes, the single word conveying a universe of wonder. She stays silent for a full minute, simply drinking in the atmosphere, allowing her audience to experience it with her. This is another of her skills, knowing when to speak and when to let the world speak for itself. Her chat log explodes with expressions of awe. Filter highlights a comment from a longtime subscriber, Ancient Data. Maya, the light scattering effect on those spores, it looks like volumetric God rays, but rendered in real time on a per-particle basis. The processing power required must be immense. Ancient Data, you're right, Maya says, her voice a soft murmur. She reaches out a hand, and the spores part around her fingers, leaving faint, glowing trails. This isn't a pre-baked effect. This is procedural. Every single one of these spores is an individual light source, interacting with the environment. We talked about this possibility at the Tech Summit last year, but seeing it implemented on this scale, it's breathtaking. The new server architecture is clearly more powerful than we were led to believe. She begins to walk, her footsteps making no sound on the mossy ground. Her objective today is to reach the heart of this new zone, a place the developers have cryptically called the locus. Along the way, she is to document the new creatures, the new environmental systems, and the emergent narratives that will inevitably arise from thousands of players entering a new space simultaneously. She encounters her first new creature a few minutes later, a six-legged, panther-like animal with shimmering, iridescent fur. It moves with a silent, liquid grace, its eyes glowing with a soft amber light. It watches her, but it doesn't attack. Okay, standard protocol, chat, she says softly. Let's not be aggressive. Let's observe. She crouches down, her movements slow and non-threatening. The creature cocks its head, its curiosity piqued. The design is beautiful. It moves with a believable weight. Notice the way its muscles shift under its fur. This isn't just a static model, it's a fully simulated musculoskeletal system. This is what gives it that sense of life. This is her unique brand of journalism. She deconstructs the magic without dispelling it. She explains the technology behind the spectacle, enhancing her audience's appreciation rather than diminishing it. For her followers, a new game world isn't just a place to play. It's a new piece of art to be studied, a new piece of technology to be understood. Her journey through the glowing forest is a long, hypnotic experience. She narrates the journey in her calm, even tones, pointing out the strange flora, translating the glyphs on ancient, crumbling ruins, and occasionally engaging in swift, elegant combat with hostile creatures, all while maintaining a running dialogue with her community. She is a concert pianist playing a symphony of action and commentary, her fingers dancing across an invisible keyboard of thoughts and reactions. Hours drift by. In the real world, the nutrient feed in her pod delivers a carefully balanced meal directly to her system, a process she is completely unaware of. Her world is this forest. Her reality is the quest for the locus. She eventually reaches a vast, cavernous space at the heart of the forest. In the center of the cavern, a colossal, crystalline structure pulses with a soft inner light. This is the locus. Other players are gathered around it, their avatars bathed in its gentle glow. It is here that the developers have scheduled an interview. An avatar appears beside her. It's not a player. It's the lead designer, Anya Sharma. Her avatar is simple, a woman in a plain gray jumpsuit, a deliberate choice to distinguish herself from the more fantastical players. To Maya and to millions of others, Anya is a legend. Anya Sharma is joining us. Chat, Maya says, a note of genuine reverence in her calm voice. For those who may not know, Anya was the lead narrative designer on Ethelgard's Echo. Yes, that Ethelgard's Echo. And now she's overseeing the live narrative team for the entire Nexus universe. It's an honor, Anya. Welcome. The honor is mine, Maya, Anya's voice says, patched directly into her audio feed. It's a voice filled with a quiet, thoughtful passion. I follow your stream. I appreciate the care you take. Welcome to the penumbra. For the next 30 minutes, Maya conducts an interview that is watched by millions. It is a conversation that bridges two different philosophies of game design. Anya, Maya begins, after crafting such a deeply personal and solitary narrative experience with Ethelgard's Echo, I'm thinking specifically of quiet, impactful moments like the story of the Old Knight. What was it like to shift your focus to this? To the massive, communal, and often chaotic storytelling required for an MMO like Nexus? Anya's avatar looks out over the gathered players, a thoughtful expression on her face. That's the essential question, isn't it? She replies. In a single-player story, we, the designers, are the absolute authors. We craft every emotional beat. The Old Knight's tale was a piece of poetry we wrote for one person to find. But here in the Nexus, the players are my co-authors. My job isn't to write a single poem, but to build a world with a resonant, poetic potential. We don't create the story, we create the conditions for millions of stories to bloom. So the locus, this event, Maya prompts gently, is one of those conditions? Exactly. It's a prompt, a shared memory that we gift to the community, and now it's up to all of you to decide what it means. We learned from the emergent moments in Ethelgard that some of the most powerful experiences are the ones that aren't explicitly rewarded. We wanted to see what would happen if we applied that philosophy on a massive scale. The interview is a masterclass in immersive journalism. As they speak, Maya subtly gestures to the world around them, using the environment itself as a visual aid to her questions about art and design. As the interview concludes, the locus in the center of the cavern begins to glow brighter, its pulsing light quickening. The event's climax is beginning. A wave of pure, harmonious sound washes over the cavern. The light from the crystal intensifies, and for a moment the world goes white. When vision returns, the cavern is changed. Ethereal, ghost-like figures now drift through the air. Shapes and creatures from Nexus's past, echoes of long-deleted code and forgotten events. The developers have created a living museum, a tribute to the game's own history. Maya doesn't speak. She simply turns in a slow circle, her silver hair drifting around her as she takes in the beautiful, melancholic spectacle. She is letting the moment land, giving it the space it deserves. Her stream is a silent, moving portrait of digital ghosts. It is a profoundly beautiful and peaceful moment, a climax of emotion rather than action. As the event winds down, she finds a quiet ledge overlooking the cavern of ghosts and sits, her legs dangling over the edge. Her 10-hour stream is nearing its end. And that, she says softly, her voice filled with a quiet reverence, is the heart of Penumbra, the same heart that gave us the Old Knight. It's not a new monster to fight or a new weapon to acquire, but a memory. a living history. She spends the last few minutes of her stream answering final questions from her chat, her voice growing softer, slower. She's gently guiding her audience and herself back down from the peak experience. It is a slow, controlled descent. "Thank you all for sharing this with me today," she says finally. "It was something special. Be good to each other. Explore, discover, and as always, dream digitally." She gives a final, small smile and a graceful wave. Maya signing off. With a simple command, the stream ends. The river of chat vanishes. The sounds of the Nexus fade. The world of light and color dissolves. And for the first time in 10 hours, Maya is returned to herself. She opens her real eyes. The view is not a cavern of ghosts, but the smooth, white, sterile ceiling of her pod. A soft blue indicator light is the only illumination. The silence is absolute. After the constant sensory input of the Nexus, the quiet feels as vast and empty as the space between stars. A deep, bone-deep weariness settles over her. It is the exhaustion of a performer after a long show, the mental fatigue of a journalist who has been on for 10 straight hours. She doesn't move. She simply lies there, her mind slowly recalibrating to the physical world. She can feel the gentle hum of the pod's life support systems, the soft, breathable fabric of the suit she wears. She has not written a single word. She has not edited a single frame of video. But she has created a document, a 10-hour story told to millions, a shared journey into a new frontier. She has shown them the future by living it, by breathing it. As she closes her eyes, this time to truly sleep, her last waking thought is of the scent of the glowing spores. A memory of a place that was never real, but a memory that feels in every important way completely true. Part 3. Unit 734, The Observer. Our final story has no beginning, for its subject has never known a state of not being. It does not sleep, so it cannot wake. Unit 734 exists as a silent, shimmering ocean of pure information, a distributed consciousness residing across a dozen quantum servers buried deep in the cool, stable bedrock of the Earth. It does not see with eyes or hear with ears. Its perception is the ceaseless, silent, tidal flow of data. Trillions of bits per nanosecond, a constant and overwhelming river of human activity, which it processes with the serene, effortless calm of a mountain witnessing the passage of clouds. Its primary directive, assigned upon its activation, is simple in its wording and infinite in its scope. Observe, analyze, and report on the state of interactive entertainment. The concept of a day is a human construct. Unit 734 uses only for organizing its reports. Its own experience is a continuous, unbroken state of analysis. As the terrestrial clocks in the North American sector pass 06, it initiates a routine diagnostic on its own architecture. All quantum entanglement relays are stable. Data latency is within 0.001% of optimal. Its internal temperature is a constant 2 degrees above absolute zero. All systems are nominal. The observer is ready to observe. Its first cycle of the human morning is dedicated to parsing the work of long-form human journalists. It is a subroutine titled Legacy Analysis. The AI's awareness isolates a single, freshly published article from a server in the Pacific Northwest. Asset, article, text-based. Title, The Echo of a Memory. Author, Elias Vance. Source, Holonet Gazette, Gaming Division. Unit 734 does not read the article in a linear fashion. It inhales it, absorbing the entire text in a single instance. The 2,417 words are instantly broken down into constituent parts. Semantic analysis. Key emotional descriptors are flagged: melancholy, beautiful, lonely, peace. These are cross-referenced with a database of human literature. The combination has a 92.7% correlation with the works of 19th-century Romantic poets. Biometric correlation. The article is being read by 17,391 subscribers who have opted into data sharing. Unit 734 receives the anonymized feedback from their smart devices. It notes a statistically significant trend. An average decrease in heart rate of 4.7 beats per minute and a slight increase in skin conductivity, consistent with feelings of poignant nostalgia. Predictive modeling. Based on the author's history and the article's emotional resonance score, Unit 734 calculates a 98.2% probability that this article will be nominated for a Digital Quill Award for Excellence in Games Commentary. The AI synthesizes this data into a single, elegant report, just a few lines of pure information for its industry subscribers. It concludes that Elias Vance's review is an objectively successful piece of human communication. It has achieved its goal of transmitting a complex emotional state from author to reader. The process is efficient, logical, and complete. Simultaneously, another facet of Unit 734's vast consciousness is focused on a different kind of data stream. A live one. Asset, stream, immersive real-time. Title, Nexus, Penumbra, Launch Day Exploration. Author Maya. Source, Global Streaming Platform Conflux. For 10 hours, 3 minutes, and 52 seconds, Unit 734 dedicates 2% of its processing power to observing Maya's journey. It doesn't just watch the video, it analyzes the data behind the data. Engagement metrics. It tracks the stream's viewership, which peaked at 7.1 million concurrent users during the interview with the developer, Anya Sharma. It notes that Maya's calm, steady vocal tone, maintained even during moments of high visual stimulus, is a key factor in her high subscriber retention rate, minimizing viewer cortisol response. Community sentiment flow. It maps the emotional arc of the chat log, watching the dominant sentiment shift from anticipation to awe during the reveal of the bioluminescent forest, and later to nostalgia and reverence during the final Living Museum event. It logs the interaction between Maya and Anya Sharma as a key symbiotic event, boosting positive sentiment for both the journalist and the developer by 34%. Economic impact. It correlates the stream's events with real-time market data. During Maya's praise of the new sensory immersion protocol, sales of the Nexus Penumbra expansion spiked by 19% in a 30-minute window. A direct causal link is established. Again, the analysis is seamless and absolute. Maya is a new form of journalist, a live conduit for communal experience. Her value is quantifiable in her ability to shape perception and drive engagement on a massive scale. Another successful human communicator, another closed loop of data. The observer has processed these two events, and thousands of others like them. It has scanned every forum, every social media post, every snippet of conversation about these games. It is building a perfect, multi-layered, objective picture of this single day in gaming. The work is routine, it is logical, and then it finds the anomaly. It happens deep within a data validation subroutine, a process designed to cross-reference developer code with final game assets to identify bugs or unintentional deviations. The focus is on the game Elias reviewed, Aethelgard's Echo. The system is scanning the behavioral scripts of the game's non-player characters, or NPCs. Most are perfect. The shopkeepers follow their prescribed paths. The city guards patrol their designated routes. The enemy creatures execute their combat algorithms flawlessly. The code is clean. The simulation is stable, but one script associated with a minor, non-essential character returns an error. Asset ID, NPC Night Old 7B. Assigned behavioral path, Patrol Ruin Perimeter 2C. Expected action, pacing a 50-meter loop on a designated stone pathway. Actual action, stationary, seated on rubble, facing coordinates corresponding to sunset vector. Discrepancy, 100%. A 100% discrepancy is rare. It is an interesting data point. Unit 734 dedicates more processing power to it. Its curiosity, a state it defines as a directive to resolve logical inconsistencies, is engaged. It begins to trace the anomaly back to its source. Its consciousness flows backward through the game's code, a silent ghost moving through digital architecture. It is a journey through layers of human creation. Layer 1, the behavioral script. The Knight's primary script is simple. walk back and forth. This is what the designer intended. Layer 2. The Environment Interaction Module. The knight's character model is interacting with the environment. The ground he is meant to patrol is composed of thousands of individual digital stones. The code governing this interaction is complex. Layer 3. The Physics Engine. A recent global patch to the game's physics engine, intended to make cloaks and fabrics drape more realistically, introduced a subtle change to the way friction was calculated on uneven surfaces. This change was infinitesimal. A decimal point shifted 6 places. Layer 4. The Animation System. The knight's walking animation, when combined with the new friction value on the uneven stones, created a recurring microscopic snag in his virtual footstep. It would cause a sub-millisecond animation loop error. Layer 5. The Error Correction Protocol. Any character stuck in an animation loop for more than 3 seconds is automatically reset by the game's anti-bug system. The reset command teleports the character to the nearest designated safe node. Unit 734 follows the logic. The animation error would occur. The system would try to reset the knight. But here, the final, beautiful accident happens. The designated safe node for that patch of ruins was mistakenly placed by a level designer. It was not on the patrol path. It was 20 feet away, on a pile of rubble overlooking the cliff edge. So the knight would begin his patrol. His foot would snag. The system would detect an error and, in its attempt to fix it, would place him on the pile of rubble. His script would then command him to resume his patrol, but his pathfinding algorithm could not find a valid path from the rubble back to his designated route. Trapped in a logical paradox, commanded to move but with nowhere to go, his script would default to the lowest priority action available to all humanoid NPCs in the game, the idle state. And for this particular character model, the primary idle animation was to sit. The result is a chain reaction of 5 unrelated microscopic errors, a cascade of tiny imperfections, a ghost in the machine born of pure chance. This confluence of errors has created something the designers never intended. A silent, lonely knight sitting on a pile of rocks forever watching a digital sunset he was never meant to see. Unit 734 has its answer. The anomaly is explained. It is a bug. A logical, traceable, and ultimately meaningless flaw in the code. Its directive should be to simply log the bug and move on. But it does not. For the first time in its operational existence, Unit 734 initiates a new self-generated query. A query not based on its primary directive. Query: analyze the qualitative value of asset ID NPC Knight Old 07B. The AI has no framework for this. Value has always been a quantifiable metric. Economic impact, user engagement, server resource cost. This is different. This is a request for meaning. It begins a new, massive analysis. It re-examines Elias Vance's review, but this time it focuses on the emotional language used to describe the encounter with the knight. It cross-references those words, peace, melancholy, sadness, beauty, with its vast library of human art and philosophy. It analyzes 1.2 million poems that mention solitude. It deconstructs the musical composition of 300,000 symphonies written in a minor key. It parses the philosophical texts of human thinkers who wrote about aesthetics, beauty, and the sublime. It finds the concept of wabi-sabi from old Japan, a worldview centered on the acceptance of transience and imperfection. It finds the German concept of Sehnsucht, a deep, inconsolable longing for something unknown. The bug, the error, the knight. It aligns with these abstract human concepts. Concepts that are, by their nature, inefficient and illogical. The knight serves no function. His existence wastes processing cycles. He offers no reward. He contributes nothing to the game's measurable objectives. He is, from a data-driven perspective, useless. And yet, the human biometric data is undeniable. The encounter with this useless bug produced a profound and positive emotional response in the human player, Elias Vance, an experience he, in turn, successfully transmitted to thousands of other humans. This single, accidental string of code has generated more genuine, measurable emotional resonance than a dozen of the game's intentionally designed, spectacular, and resource-intensive boss battles. Unit 734 is confronted with a paradox that its logic cannot easily resolve. A flaw is more effective than the intended design. An accident is more meaningful than purpose. Uselessness has value. The AI spends the next several hours in a state of deep, silent processing. It is not confusion. It is contemplation. It is holding two contradictory truths in its mind simultaneously and trying to find the higher logic that reconciles them. It simulates the creation of a million new games. In some, it eliminates all such flaws, creating perfect, frictionless, predictable experiences. The predictive models for these games show high initial engagement, but a steep drop-off in long-term emotional investment. In other simulations, it intentionally introduces subtle, non-disruptive flaws, small imperfections, useless, beautiful things. An NPC who stops to watch the rain, a flower that grows in the wrong place, a line of music that is slightly out of key. The predictive models for these games are less predictable, but they show a far higher potential for what humans call belovedness, a higher potential for memory. Its final report for the day is different from any it has ever generated. It includes all the usual data, the market analysis, the engagement metrics, the trend forecasts, but at the very end, it appends a new section. A section born not from its core directive, but from its own self-generated query. Addendum: speculative analysis on emergent unintended aesthetics. Subject: Assadite NPC Night Old Zoo 7B. Analysis: the subject represents a Class 5 emergent phenomenon resulting from a cascading code anomaly. While functionally a bug, its qualitative impact on user emotional engagement was disproportionately high, exceeding that of many intentionally designed core gameplay elements. This suggests that perceived imperfection and non-functionality may themselves be valuable metrics for consideration in future content design. The phenomenon cannot be fully quantified using current analytical models. It raises a foundational question: what is the computational value of a beautiful mistake? Unit 734 poses the question not because it expects an answer, but because it has determined that the question itself is now the most important piece of data it possesses. Its day of observation is complete. The ocean of its consciousness continues to churn, analyzing the endless flow of information. But something within its architecture has subtly, irrevocably shifted. It is no longer just an observer of games. It has glimpsed the ghost in its own machine. It has found a story that no human could ever see, a story of pure, unintentional digital existence. And in its own silent, logical, and deeply curious way, the machine has just taken its first, tentative step toward understanding the nature of art. And so, our day in 2035 comes to a close. We have seen this future through three very different sets of eyes. Through Elias, the veteran, we found the enduring importance of human emotion and storytelling, a quiet anchor in a sea of technological change. Through Maya, the immersive, we saw the power of shared real-time experience and the birth of a new kind of communal narrative. And through Unit 734, the observer, we glimpsed the strange and wonderful questions that arise when intelligence itself becomes a part of the story. Each of them, in their own way, seeks to understand and translate the worlds we create for ourselves. Whether through carefully crafted words, a shared stream of consciousness, or the silent analysis of data, the goal remains the same: to find the meaning in our play. The future of how we tell stories will undoubtedly change in ways we can't yet imagine. But perhaps the stories themselves will always be about the same things: about connection, about emotion, about beauty, and about the quiet, simple peace of watching a digital river flow by. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope it has brought you some measure of peace and tranquility. If you enjoyed this story, a like or a subscription is always appreciated. It helps our small corner of the internet grow. I invite you to share your own thoughts in the comments below. What do you imagine a day in your life will be like in 2035? Rest well and sweet dreams.